Hey, Geekscapists, welcome to a brand new Geekscape podcast. I'm Jonathan London, your host. And if this is your first Geekscape, strap yourselves in for some pop culture talk. Movies, video games, comic books, TV. That's the stuff we've been doing since 2006. And if you missed last week's Geekscape, if you're like, hey, wait, where was the video? Last week's episode did not have a video because we were at Comic-Con Revolution in Ontario and I was recording one-on-one interviews. And it's a really fun episode. So if you're watching this on video and you're not subscribed to a podcast of Geekscape, like on Spotify or what is it, Apple Podcasts, there's all sorts of weird ones. Is Stitcher still a thing? I think, is Stitcher still with us? Can you guys tell me in the comments if Stitcher is still with us? The landscape of podcasting is it's changed a lot in the last 18 years, but we've always been there. In last week's episode from Comic-Con Revolution, with some amazing conversations with Adrienne Palicki. You guys know her from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. in the Orville. She was great. Carlos Ferro from Gears of War, the video game series, and Assassin's Creed. He's always been a good friend of the show. And Sandy Carpenter, how much fun was that? And then maybe some creators you've never heard of. You got to listen to the episode to find out, but it's a blast. And there's some comics, there's some movies, there's some cartooning, there's acting in movies and video games. So there's all sorts of stuff in that episode. It's a fun little grab bag of conversation. Speaking of grab bag, some people coming up on the show that are a lot of fun. I told you guys the story of befriending Walter Koenig last week, and I'm as surprised as you. Walter and I have become texting friends, and we're trying to decide when to meet up for lunch. But in the meantime, speaking of Star Trek, and Heidi's the Trekkie in the family, Adam Nimoy wants to come on the show. That's Leonard Nimoy's son. He has a new book called The Most Human about his relationship with his father, which Walter and I talked about because sadly Walter's son died of suicide. You guys remember maybe in 2010, and Walter and I talked about that because we've lost close family members, and he talked about the strained relationship between Adam and Leonard. And I guess Adam has put it in this new book. So Adam has sent me a copy of the book. Adam Nimoy is going to come on the show, and that'll be fun. And then we also have Jim Kruger. If you guys are into comics, you remember Jim Kruger. He worked with Alex Ross on Earth X, Planet X, some really amazing stuff for Marvel, but he's worked for every publisher. And it was at his place yesterday, having like a comic book meetup with people like Tony Rodriguez, Tony Fleece. They were just on the show. My old Miami Vice comic book editor, Shannon Denton. It was great catching up with him. We talked about Jim coming on the show because he's got some new projects. I think one of them, I can't talk about who it's involved with. He told me, I don't know if it's released, but maybe he can once he's on the show. But we're going to be talking comics pretty soon. And no sooner are we done with Comic-Con Revolution, we're going right into Comic-Con San Diego. And I might be a dad by then. I'm supposed to be a dad a week or two after San Diego Comic-Con. So if you're going to San Diego Comic-Con, you come by the Geekscape booth expecting to see me. You'll see me if it's Wednesday night and the baby has not been born. But if the baby's been born, it's going to be the Matt Kelly show. But we've got Matt Milligan from Wheatus, you know that band. They do a podcast here on the. Matt does a podcast on the network. We've got a whole team of Geekscapists to meet with, and then we got some cool creators that are going to be signing throughout the week there in San Diego. It's a shame I can't be there the whole time, but I'm having a kid. It's insane. I think I'm ready, then I'm not ready. I don't know. This episode, though, since we're talking about Star Trek, I met the guest of the show, Joel M. Gonzales. He's a producer, and he runs Nosotros. Nosotros is a Latino film entertainment. I'll have him explain it. But basically, they have their big events out of the Montalbán. You guys know Montalbán because he played Khan on Star Trek. Isn't that right, geeks? And we've been going as Latino filmmakers to the Montalbán for these amazing Nosotros events. And then finally, I was like, who's in charge of this thing? Well, he's coming on the show. Joel's coming on the show. And then I saw him at the Long Game premiere. This is a movie that had Dennis Quaid, Jay Hernandez, Cheech Marin in it. It's fantastic. It's on Amazon right now. You really should watch it. Your parents are going to love it. We're going to talk about that film. And Heidi elbowed me. I was like, you should get Joel on the show. You should get this guy on the show who produced this movie. And I said, okay, I'll work on it. And as soon as I sent the email, he was like, I'd love to be on Geekscape. So that's coming out with Geekscape. Let's start up the show. Here's the theme song. We'll be right back. with Joel M. Gonzales. All right, Geekscapists. Joel M. Gonzales is the president and executive producer of Nosotros. That's the Latino entertainment culture organization that was started by Mr. Montalbán, and it's been around since 1970. That's how he came across my radar. And then I saw this movie, The Long Game, and I absolutely loved it. And I think you should all be watching it with your families, your friends. It's a sports movie, but it's really a God, I got to have him describe it, because it's about so much more than just the game of golf, a game that doesn't necessarily even interest me that much. But I went and I loved it, and I kind of, it doesn't matter if I like the sport myself or not. I like sports movies because they're so hopeful and inspiring. So The Long Game definitely scratched that itch. He's also the head of Untold Content and Action Faith Media. Let's have him on the show right here. Joel M. Gonzales, people.
Hello,
How are you?
Hello. Wow, great intro.
Thank you, sir.
Even your intro was like, whoa, this, I got really nervous.
Don't be nervous. I'll tell you what, the reason you're here is I went to this Long Game premiere because you invited Nosotros members, and you came out and you introduced the movie, and I loved the movie, and I like the Mucho Mas stuff that Jay and Dennis Quaid have been doing with them. But this movie was wonderful. And before it, you came out and you gave a really wonderful speech about producing the movie. You didn't have a credit on the prior collaboration with Mucho Mas. Is that correct? The diving movie, the movie with the boat?
The Blue Miracle? No.
Blue Miracle.
No. This those totally separate projects. Yeah.
Sure. But it's same director, right? In Mucho Mas is,
yeah, they directed, Julio directed, Quintana directed the Blue Miracle that had Dennis Quaid in it. I'm not sure if he directed the diving one. I think you're talking about the shark one, right? I think.
No, I'll tell you what. I'm talking, both of them are Blue Miracle. I just, for some reason, thought there was diving in it. I knew there wasn't a shark in it. I know there's not a shark in it, but I was like, well, they're on a boat. It's got to have some.
It has a bluefin tuna in it. It just
okay. That, you know what? I'm going to write that down. That counts. Bluefin tuna. Geekscape, if you watch Blue Miracle, that's not the only miracle. The blue thing you're going to get. You're going to get a bluefin tuna.
Yeah,
there you go. It's a fishing movie.
It's a fishing movie. It's a competition. Okay. It's a true. Well, here I'm promoting their movie, but regardless, it's another amazing story that has gone untold about a fishing competition that happens in Baja California, and this kind of semi kind of orphanage or boys' home competes, and they end up winning that year. So it's kind of similar to The Long Game. Again, just an untold story of 5 young Mexican caddies in the south of Texas in the 1950s that love the golf. They love the game of golf. Excuse me, so much that they went out and created their own green in the middle of the kind of Texas brush. Long story short, they get discovered by the local superintendent, the new superintendent, who was not also allowed to play at that country club, the Del Rio Country Club. And he decides to create the first ever Del Rio golf team, which is of the 5 young men. And then they went on to win the national championship. I want to say 3 years in a row. Our film takes place of the first year they won, but they did win additionally 2 years, I believe.
Well, spoilers, Geekscape. I'm kidding. It's a true story. And, no, it's all good. It's all good. Because you know they're going to come away with something. And in Geekscape, the movie was a story I did not know about. Yes. And like Joel said, it's 5 Mexican kids, and in every turn of the court, they're getting beat up in an alley. They're getting in fist fights. They're being seen as Mexican criminals. I mean, they're being seen as other, right? Especially in Texas in post World War, post Korea. Some of these are Korean veterans, or they're World War II veterans. It's Korea.
Post Korean War, mid 50s. Yeah.
So you have Dennis Quaid, who is a golf pro at a golf club there, and then you have Jay Hernandez, who's taken over the sort of superintendent of the school, and then he wants to start this golf team. He actually wants to join this other really nice golf club there in town, and they just see him as a Mexican.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's just that for that time and period of time, we were mixed in, whether you were American born Mexican or Mexican, we're just kind of mixed in together. I heard you kind of describe the film at the beginning, and what I call it is it's an American underdog story that happens to be Latino led or Mexican American Latino led, right? So it's no different from Hoosiers, if you're really into like film history, right? It's any story where there's been a group of underdogs that go above and beyond the challenges faced to them, whether it be adversity, physically or emotionally, but they overcome all that stuff, right? Look, Cool Runnings was a great movie.
Cool Runnings is awesome. Cool Runnings is awesome.
It's like, if you wanted to go there, it has all the elements of that. But please don't look at it as, and I tell people, and this is one of the things I mentioned in my opening, was don't call this a Latino film, because it's not a Latino film. This is an American underdog story that happens to be Latino led, but it is about these young men, Mexican American men, that because of the time were just looked upon as less than, and here they rise to a challenge. To the challenge, and ultimately, yes, I might have given away at the end, but there's so much more depth to it. And I think what was important for me when we were developing it was that it didn't be on the nose as a Latino film, right? And the organization, that you mentioned, Nosotros, founded by Ricardo Montalbán in 1970, we're an actors organization. We're the oldest Latino arts organization in the country. And we're primarily about proper representation, creating opportunities, being that bridge between the industry and the Latino community, aspiring actors, established actors, and that's been always my focus. And, I myself, as they say, I'm not just the president, I'm a member too, in the sense as a content creator, as a producer. But I'm always looking for stories that just go against the traditional norm that you would expect, right? I didn't want to tell another border story or another, rags to riches story. And those are important stories to tell, and that there is still a place for that. But this film is not that. This film is a sports film, like you said, but it just has so much more heart to that. So pretty proud of it.
It's an awesome movie, and Geekscape, so I'm not being facetious, and I know that this isn't. I know it's not Marvel.
Tired of it. I love Marvel.
It's like I can't wait for the Deadpool and the Wolverine, and I went to see Furiosa this weekend and all that stuff. But I'll tell you, Geekscape, I walked out of the long game feeling like this is a movie I want my parents to see. I know I posted about it on Instagram. I know I posted about it on Facebook. This is a movie that I thought, and again, like Joel says, if this is a Latino movie, then Cool Runnings is a Black movie, and it's not. I don't think anybody looks at Cool Runnings and is like, oh, that's a mid-90s Black movie. No, it's not. It's an inspiring sports story, and I look at the long game in the same way. So if you enjoy this stuff, and I think the history of it and the fact that this is a true story, that was eye-opening for me. Not some of the things that they dealt with, because from history that, what the suit riots are happening in LA were pretty much parallel to these events, and those stories, and that things weren't all sunshine and roses, but the golf aspect of it, and just how good these kids were at it, and then and you add to it the overcoming hurdles. I absolutely loved it. I thought it was great. How did you get involved in the movie, Joel?
Well, in 2017, 16, 17, somewhere around there, we were doing a golf tournament for Nosotros. We were doing a Nosotros golf tournament out in Montebello at the Quaid Cannon golf course there. And that was our first year. Second year we did it, got more recognition, more attention, had some celebrities show up. And in a roundabout way, Javier Chapa, who is over at Mucho Mas, great company, they're doing great stuff, he shared this book. He says, hey, there's this book that, I've been kicking around. He shared it with me the year prior when I was on another production, and we're just trying to find something to collab on. And since I was doing the golf tournament, and this particular year I was going to actually play, I started taking classes, and went out and bought the gear, bought the shoes. I went way ahead of myself. And I said, I'm going to read the book. Now I'm really going to dive into the book and really read it. And it's a self-published book called The Mustang Miracle. And I read it and I said, oh my God, this is real. This is true. And the book itself reads more kind of like a periodical, kind of just like a play-by-play. But just
in Geekscape, that's what I'm thinking as I'm watching the movie. I'm like, wait, really? All of the, they're that. I mean, I understand they get the team going, but no, these are actually really good. Players. Wow.
Yeah, no, they were out there. I mean, they were learning on their own green that they called El Llanito, right? The little hilltop, right? So, I'm reading this. I'm like, no, this we have to make this movie. So, long story short, we connected, we collabed on optioning the book. We went through various versions of the script with the writers. At one point, I brought in a mentor of mine, very well-known executive producer and director, Chris Weitz, who
I love Chris.
wrote Rogue One. He sat with us just out of the goodness of his heart, because he loved the story so much.
And he's Latino, and you don't think at Geekscape is because he's one of the guys who brought you American Pie.
Yeah, exactly.
But also he's got some amazing talent beyond the American Pie, like you said. About a Boy was the one I was going to list. I think that's where the Weitz brothers turned that corner, and it was like, wait, these are the American Pie guys are doing this.
Funny note, I was working at Summit Entertainment. I was an executive assistant in business legal affairs when American Pie, and we were the sales agent for American Pie. So I got to meet him years and years and years ago. And then years and years later, I reached out to him when I was working at the Paley Center for Media as an associate programming director, because he had just done a movie called A Better Life, if you remember that.
That one is where I learned he was Latino, because he remade my favorite film of all time, The Bicycle Thieves.
There you go.
And in Geekscape, The Bicycle Thieves, you may know, has been remade as well as Pee-wee's Big Adventure, which is my favorite Tim Burton movie. I love Pee-wee's Big Adventure, but The Bicycle Thieves, Geekscape, as you were doing Geekscape trivia, my top 3 films are Empire Strikes Back is number 2, Bicycle Thieves number 1, and number 3, Nacho Libre. You got to go with that. My brother's a wrestler and I'm half Mexican. I'm a white passing Mexican. You think I'm not gonna like Nacho Libre? I saw that movie 4 times in the theater the year before Geekscape started, or otherwise I'd be touting that thing left and right up around here.
But he even came in and sat with the writers for a little bit, just as a favor to me. And we just, we hit the ground running with it. And Mucho Mas did a great job from there of packaging the film. And then when Julio, the director, came in, he added his touch to it, which I think was just so much better. He added just elements that were important to all of us, but he was able to kind of, from an outside in, be able to bring in as a director these beautiful moments in the film, which is like, one I'll share is like, again, as a Mexican American, you think, okay, well, I'm Mexican, and I'm lighter skinned Mexican, right? So I can't say things, but I'm
a halvesy. I tell people, I don't even tell people I'm Mexican. I tell them I'm Texican, because I grew up in Austin, and my father's from the Panhandle. My mother's from Guadalajara, but my father's from the Panhandle. I'm Texican. I'm like, there's Abe Duenas from South Carolina, my buddy, and he just goes, Nacho. He and I love Nacho Libre, and we've talked about making a movie in Mexico, Abe and I. And Abe, I'm talking to Chris tomorrow about still trying to get a movie going in Mexico. He says he tells people that he's Native American.
He's a Native American.
Oh my God, I've been watching Dark Winds the last couple of days, binging that one. Oh my God, I love that show. But my sir, tell people, Abe, whatever you want. So Joel, you where do we leave off when I just got the ADD? I'm sorry, sir. People are commenting throughout the show.
The point was that there was a point where the guys go to cut loose in Mexico, and then they get discriminated there, and that was important to us, because I wanted to show that there's a difference. We don't fit there, we don't fit here, and it's, I think even Edward James Olmos has that line in Selena. He goes, we're not Mexican enough for the Mexican, and we're too Mexican, and we're not Mexican, and we're not white enough for the Americans. I'm quoting the line probably the bad way. And that's the way that we wanted everyone to understand this role, that these kids were these weren't Mexican kids. They were just kids growing up in South Texas who wanted to play golf. right? That's all. That's the way they saw it. But all those odds were against them. So again, not to belate, but
No, you mentioned a movie made by one of my heroes, and I don't talk about him on Geekscape enough, but Gregory Nava.
Yeah.
I think that Jimmy Smits should have won an Oscar for Mi Familia. I think that the ICU scene right there, and I think Mi Familia is incredible. I think it's a perfect movie, and it introduced Selena as an or not Selena. I'm sorry, Jennifer Lopez, who played Selena later on. She has a small part in that movie, and she's very young in that movie. But I just showed a bunch of film students El Norte. This is his first movie. He made it right out of UCLA, 1981, 82. This movie is for $500,000. It's him and like 5 other ex-UCLA students in a bus going down to Mexico to shoot it for Guatemala, shoot it for Mexico, and then they shot it in San Diego, where he's from. And then it got nominated for 2 Oscars. This movie El Norte, which I hadn't seen in a long time, I rewatched it I was showing film students this stuff, and I could not believe the accomplishments of this freaking movie. Geekscape this is a Herculean effort that they pulled off a shoestring. At one point, they thought they had clearance to shoot in a local church down in Mexico, and whoever had set that up for them hadn't crossed the T's and dotted the I's. They started shooting in this church, and the villagers were so upset. They look out, and there's a couple hundred people with machetes outside, and they had to run for their lives into the vans. And then he forgot his storyboards. The making of it is amazing. When they're shooting in the States, the 2 lead actors didn't have papers to shoot in the States, and they're shooting in an immigration office with immigration officers. And at any point, they could have been like, hey, guys, I know the scene is about whether or not you guys have papers, but do you 2 actors have papers? And it would have been game over for them. That's an incredible filmmaking story.
That's having to just take the risk, man, and take the challenge. And I tell people a lot that, there's no one formula to it. If you're that passionate and that excited about an idea, sometimes just getting out there and doing it. As you get older, the realities of life and this business can beat you up, chew you up, and then spit you out. But you gotta stay true or real to why you got into it or why you do it. Like, I couldn't imagine myself doing anything else. And believe me, there are days I just feel so beat up with this industry. But what else am I gonna do? I love what I get to do. So
how did you get into it?
I got into it later in my life. I've
always
what were
you doing until then?
Well, I was married very young, so I didn't really necessarily go to a 4-year college. I just kind of got right into the job force. I've had multiple jobs. I've kind of been like that Forrest Gump and gotten to work at some great places where I didn't know. Now, retrospect, I'm like, wow, I got to work at some cool places. But I've always been kind of in the marketing or distribution sales side of things. And it was into my mid 30s that I just said, look, if I'm ever going to do this, I'm going to do it now. My kids were a little older. I was divorced, and I said, you know what, I'm going to do this now. And I was a PA. My first time I was a PA on set. I was 34 years old, and the director was 22 from Canada. It was a funded film. And I remember being handed his car keys and to go wash a car. I'm not making that up. I was like, I thought that was a cliche or a stereo. It's a joke that you see in movies. But I'm driving that car and I'm getting it washed, and I did the best job I could to get that car washed because I knew this wasn't my end all be all. Being in my 30s, I knew what I wanted to achieve. I wanted to be a producer. So shortly after that, I got recognized by the AD who brought me in, and she let me shadow her for 2 additional films as an AD trainee. Not officially through the DGA training program, but learning from her. And after that, I just decided, okay, I'm ready. I went out and did my first film called Followed Home, which you could find still on probably at the bargain bin at Walmart. I found it there a year ago. It's still there. It's sort of like part of a compilation of 7 horror films you must watch.
On one disc?
On DVD and disc, yeah. And I did that with a buddy of mine, Joaquin F. Palma, who's also a writer, director, and still working in the industry. And again, it was just something we went out and made for the cost of a used car with no engine. You know what I mean? But having had the business sense, and then having I wanted to produce, he wanted to direct. I was like, okay, let's do it. And we sold that movie within 6 months of being done with it. And yeah, it ended up on many platforms, and I'm still getting residual checks, like $18 residual checks here. Maybe about the last check I got maybe was like a year or two ago. But I'm like, wow, somebody's still renting this movie or buying this movie.
I'll tell you, Joel, it's probably our horror podcast, horror movie night. I you know what? I look up and I can't just call that our horror podcast. I think Matt Kelly, who runs our podcast network, we have over 35 shows. I think like 7 of them are horror podcasts. And I think horror is such an amazing vertical in podcasting, and people are so passionate about it. And Matt and the boys at Horror Movie Night, they do such a great job. It's gonna be a lot of fun. I mean, San Diego, I don't know what to expect with San Diego Comic-Con this year, guys. We've had the booth since 2010, but Matt's just been texting me a lot. I think he's nervous about it, but I said, Matt, like, this is like, make it yours, dude. You've been helping me with that booth the majority of those years. So, but I mean, no, if I go down there and it looks like a Freddy Krueger fan convention, I'll be like, come on, this isn't Geekscape. Like, you got to represent the other genres.
A little off brand. A little off.
Yesterday, I just invited a bunch of comic book creators to come and sign it for an hour or two at the booth. And they're going to show up, and all of a sudden, Matt's going to be dressed like Jason Voorhees, trying to get, come on, none of that. But we gotta maybe have the Horror Movie Night kids review that film if they haven't yet.
Well, I don't know. I mean, as soon after that, we did another one called it was called Prayers in the Dark, but then they changed it for distribution. They called it Exorcism: Prayers in the Dark.
That was back when like you wanted to get higher up on the alphabet.
We had a camera, we had we had access to an equipment. I had somebody who trusted me with at that point it was a big budget. We had $15,000. We had a warehouse, a pallet warehouse, and we had a bunch of actor friends. And then I tell Joaquin, what can we make? And he comes up with this really super cool idea of it's a smash between Reservoir Dogs and The Exorcism. And I was like, I love it. Let's do it. Write it. And he writes it. And we just went out and shot it. And that's what I mean by it's just, you have that eye of the tiger when you're young, and not yet necessarily young in age, or just young in your naiveness of what the film industry is. And we went out there and shot it, and it was great. We shot for 12 days, and that one, Exorcism: Prayers in the Dark, you can also find it out there. Every once in a while, I get a check in the mail.
That's the one you're going on Horror Movie Night for. Horror Movie Night, boys.
Yeah.
The president of Geekscape has a mission for you. A double header. A Joel M. Gonzales double header.
Yeah, double header. There you go. But soon after that, I started, getting kind of noticed on the radar by indie producers or recommended. I did a thing for like the guys that did Sharknado. I did some cheerleader versus zombie movie. And I just started doing a lot more. I got to start getting hired out more. And then eventually I switched over to doing, it was kind of the rise of the faith and family movies. That is where my heart is, not kind of where my heart is. So I said, let me make a film. And we did Crave the Fast Life. And Crave the Fast Life, we had a $250,000 budget at that point. Somebody trusted us enough to give us $250,000.
$250,000 is nothing to sneeze at.
Hey man,
especially not now. Especially not now. And Geekscape is like, we don't talk a whole lot about the post-strike and this and that on Geekscape too much. We're talking about pop culture and things, and I don't know how much in the weeds with the filmmaking you guys want to get, but like, if you are diversity, there's the ceiling for an ultra budget movie goes up a bit if you have a diverse cast or diverse behind the camera or below the line or above the line. But I think it's like $800,000, so $250 making something like that. The actual ceiling before you have to really start paying out to some of the unions isn't much higher than 5, 6, 7. So there's a lot of movies getting made for $250,000 that are some pretty great movies.
I wouldn't do it again, but
it's too hard. You're sleeping on floors.
Yeah.
But you saw who just won Cannes was the kid who did Tangerine in Florida Project, and you watch Tangerine shot on an iPhone like 12, 13, and like it's story, right?
I think it's story, but then I always kind of have a love-hate with those, and I'll be straight up honest about it.
Go for it.
But then everybody afterwards tries to mimic that or recreate that. Well, you can't do that. It's great inspiration, but this is what I would say, and again, trying to stay on brand with Geeks.
You don't have to. No. I mean, because it's like El Mariachi was sold as the $7,000 movie, but I mean, obviously, Universal pumped a lot of post into it and this and that. Columbia did, but it's like, but I don't know. That's a beautifully shot movie still. Like watching El Mariachi, I'm like, Yo, Robert's
What
actually
you
a
get out of
really
that
great
is
DP.
what you get out of that is just somebody that said enough is enough. I'm going to go out and do it myself, and not say
Yeah.
you can't do it yourself. Go out there and do it yourself. But then as you're doing it and you're doing it, you end up bringing along a group of people that you can collab with and create with. Now, not all of them can always follow you to the next level. That's another thing I learned because as I went from those low budget, micro budget films to making $1 million films and stuff like the Long Game or what I'm doing through Untold. There are some people that are ready for that, and there's some people that aren't, and that's what I meant by the reality of the business. At the end of the day, but this is my bread and butter, and my goal is to continue to grow, right, as a filmmaker. So, but if you don't get out there and do it, then you're never going to do it, right? And I think that's the takeaway of what I'm trying to give anybody that's listening right now or cares what I have to say is that, it starts with a little bit of an idea, a group of people crazy enough to come out and play with you. As I would say, who wants to come out and make stuff up with me? I used to have a T-shirt that says, "I make stuff up," and that was it. Like I just wanted to go out and shoot something, and found I was good at producing it, and I love sitting with my friends that are so creative and pitching ideas and figuring out what we can do next.
That sounds like our Geekscape shirt is "Don't hate, create." Like
There you go.
whatever energy you're putting towards, like maybe talking trash on, just make. I'll get you one of those shirts. But when you have that indie mindset of like just figuring out how to get it done, that mindset also serves you on those multi-million-dollar movies. And we've talked to people with this where in the Long Game did y'all maybe have a situation where it's like, all right, let's roll up the sleeves, let's figure out how to get this done, who's in?
I can't really say on the Long Game, because the Long Game I was in part of developing the film and had very little to do for the production at that point.
Sure.
Because at that point I had to sign over certain rights because I had developed it so far and I knew I couldn't take it the rest of the way. But see, that I think took a level of maturity on my end to understand, like, I can only take this as far as I can. But to give you an example, that same summer that we were shooting the Long Game, where I was in Nashville shooting another big budget film called The Life of Me. And in similar situations, I'm working with producers that haven't come from the indie world that I did. So scenarios were just where things they would think, oh my God, it's it's chaos. It's like it's not chaos. Let's take a step back and let's figure this out without having to throw money at it. Because that's the thing. When you come from the low budget, micro budget world, you have to come up with solutions where you can't throw money at it. It's like, how do we reshoot this? Get with the director, get with the DP. I bring in the AD, I'll bring in the gaffer. Like, who has an idea of how to pull off this without it costing us more money or putting anybody's life in danger? You know what I mean? And putting nobody's life in danger comes first. So I would say that the job of a producer, and this is one thing when I get the chance to speak and I tell people, my job as a producer is done in development and in prep. If I've done my job right, then I post up like Batman, right, on the top of a building, and I'm just looking down and I'm looking for smoke, not fire, because if there's fire, then I didn't do my job right, and that's my right. So that's what I do as a producer. So I think sometimes people take the word producer and very defendant of this title, right? I'm part of the Producers Guild of America, because it's not just because you pick up a phone and you connect one dot to another dot.
You're not a Rolodex. You're right.
No, it's really having to think 3 or 4 or 5 steps ahead of everything that could go wrong, that could go right, and where you have to pivot. And I think I finally, in my 50 years old age, have accepted that's my role. That's what I'm good at. So,
at Columbia grad school in our film program, Jonathan Hausman, Geekscape, he produced Man on the Moon. He produced, I don't know if he did Amadeus for the same director, but he also did like Gangs of New York, some Scorsese movies. He'd call it the money hose. He's like, if the money hose comes out, you failed. Like, if you have to wash the problem away with the money hose. And I think that you feel it on camera. I think you feel the money hose on camera because there's something tactile about a solution coming creatively when you take the money hose away. When the money hose isn't an option, you have to create a creative solution, and it makes the movie better. When it is when it's the money hose, and I think that when we're talking about superhero fatigue, which I think is, I don't know if I think it's story fatigue in a lot of ways, but when you just see the massive effects coming out, massive effects feel like money hose. It feels like, hey, the release date on this movie and making our release date is more important than the actual content of this film, because we pre-sold a bunch of merchandising tie-ins.
Yeah.
And I think if anything, that is what fatigues us with superhero films in a big way, is saying like, hey, no, we're sorry if the quality is not quite there on the writing end, but the movie has to come out on this because we've promised tent poles. We don't make smaller films because it's not beneficial to us. And in Geekscape, is if you make the parallel to let's make a parallel to like the housing in the United States, right? A lot of people in the United States are like, we cannot buy. Where did all the $100,000 homes go? Why are these movies all like $1 million homes? Why, like I read that like the median homes in California are like 900 grand or something like that. And if I'm a builder, and let's think of a builder as somebody who's at a studio. If I'm a builder, do I want to make one house that I can sell for $1 million, or do I want to make 10 that I can sell for 100,000? I probably just want to make that one house and sell it for $1 million and make my profit.
You're gonna get some. You're gonna have a success.
Making 10 $100,000 homes, even though they're going to go to 10 families and get 10 families in a home rather than just one family in a home, it's not beneficial. So when people start thinking like, hey, what happened to Underworld and Resident Evil and the 30 million, you remember they were $30 million movies.
No,
what happened to those?
I'm sorry, you said Underworld or Waterworld?
Some of those, no, Underworld. No, not Waterworld. Waterworld was famous for definitely not being a $30 million movie. But like the first Blade, even Deadpool, they only threw $60 million at it over at Fox.
And that's what made the filmmakers, the writers great, and even Chris Evans, like really, really, like you feel that when you watch that movie. I loved it, right? But I'll be telling you, the second one, I'm hoping for the third one, and they're gonna get my $18 ticket, or to like see it in IMAX or whatever.
Heidi and I started saying like, what if the baby comes? Do we go to see Wolverine and Deadpool in shifts? And I'm like, what? Baby, it's because both of her boyfriends are in the movie. That's why she's saying that, because she got both of her boyfriends in one movie.
Okay,
and okay, we'll see what happens.
Hold her water. Just hold her water.
I don't know what's gonna happen that weekend.
Is this your first child, by the way?
It is. It is. I've been doing the role of being the child in the family my entire life, like acting like that.
That's gonna be over very quick. I learned that part. So I was used to
I'm so excited, Joel.
Yes, you should be. Boy or girl?
So excited, little girl.
Oh,
and I show Heidi My Neighbor Totoro once, and all of a sudden these Amazon packages show up with My Neighbor Totoro Light, My Neighbor Totoro Mister, My Neighbor Totoro this, My Neighbor Totoro stickers, My Neighbor Totoro wall decals.
Yeah,
she loves the My Neighbor Totoro.
Yeah.
Okay. That's one of my favorites. Before I could get girls to talk to me, I liked the Miyazaki stuff.
But yeah, you are going to be wrapped around that finger, buddy. I'll tell you that.
I can't wait. I can't wait, man. I can't wait. I'm moving from action figures to a real doll. I'm just going to dress her up.
There you go.
Today we were talking about Halloween, and Heidi's like, "This is what we're going to go as for Halloween."
Mm-hmm.
This, and that. I was like, "Okay, it's a geek themed stuff."
Those get planned out years in the first birthday. I mean, you should might as well start investing now.
The smash cake thing. That's the one where the kid destroys the cake.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm sure there's all this other new stuff that has come out. I'm just saying the first birthday party, you should start investing now. Get yourself a little SoFi stash account.
It's not a quinceañera. I got 15 years to save for that thing.
Dude, I tell you right now, we had unicorns and clowns.
A real one?
Yeah, dude, I'm telling you. It got pretty expensive. So
you're like, listen, anybody got a hookup with Narnia? I gotta get my girl a unicorn. Well, Joel, I mean, talk to me about coming up in LA. Like, I'm from Austin. I feel like I have a kinship with Linklater and Rodriguez and Mike Judge, and those were my heroes. I thought I was going to go into radio. Geekscape is definitely like the result of loving talking to human. I love talking to people. I do.
Yeah.
And I scratched that. This is what scratches that itch post going into film. So it's always been a part of me in the last 30 years. How did you grew up in a big family in LA or a small family? And then where were you at?
I grew up in Watts, South Central LA, Watts, LA, Jordan in the house, class of 92. I gotta say, man, it's just, growing up in the neighborhood I grew up in, and again, I was wetter or lighter skin, so it was hard for me to fit in to begin with because I was too white for the Mexicans and I was too white for the Black people. So my first year when we moved into that area, I was getting my ass beat up every day. Excuse my language.
It's fine. Yeah.
And but I grew into my size eventually, and but the thing that kind of changed my life, there was a theater group, and this is by the time I was in high school, and I was still a knucklehead and just all the knucklehead things that we do when we're teenagers, but even more when you're just trying to fit in. There was a man named Phil Sims, and he brought in an organization, or we created an organization called Colors United. And there's actually an Oscar-nominated documentary out there called Colors United, or Colors Straight Up. So you should watch it. I'm not in it because it came out years after I was one of the original members of Colors United. And that gave me my first taste and first kind of glimpse into there's a world outside of Watts, right?
But as an actor,
as
you were acting, yeah.
I was acting, yeah. I was as an actor. My dream was to be an actor, right?
I'm going to get you to act again. I'm writing a note for myself.
And we did the Steinbeck Festival, the John Steinbeck Festival, and that I remember that's what changed my life because we got to drive. We drove to Monterey, and that took again, it's a 4 or 5 hour drive now, right? But then it's like we are leaving the concrete jungle, and we're going.
Did you do a Travels with Charlie just to get yourself in the Steinbeck frame of mind?
Travel with Charlie.
It's one of his books. Travels with Charlie. It's the one he wrote about going around the country with his dog.
Oh no!
Yeah. He's such an incredible writer, and yes, he's from
the monologue from. Gosh, I think it was the Grapes. No, the Pearl. The Pearl.
Okay,
that's the monologue from. So that was my exposure again to John Steinbeck, and Phil did such a great job of just like really exposing us to these things that we wouldn't have been exposed to. But what I found during that time was I love the logistics of stuff. So I was always the one also trying to figure out how can we do this, how can we do that. And so you asked about growing up in LA, and I think for me, I can't ever take that away because I'm born and raised here, and a lot of the times with Hollywood, right, you get this sense of like the East Coast comes here, and it's just like he's from us. No offense, you're from us.
No, I get it. Yeah, no, I'm an outsider.
I was from New York, but here, we're local. We're I would say to my to Joaquin, it's like local threat. We're the local raised versions here, but it was like Hollywood's right there, but it still felt so far away.
Sure,
And what Phil did was he made us believe in ourselves enough to say it's not that far away. You could be that, and I stuck with that. Not to say that I'm the only one. There's many people that came through that program after me, but that meant the world to me, is being a part of that. So I think that's a lot. I brought that with me in who I am and how I work, and now being president of Nosotros, which I've been going on 13 years now. And when that organization went dormant after Ricardo passed, I was asked to step in. And slowly, and we've had our ups and our downs, and we're big by name, but small in resources. But the resources we do have, we really make them available to the community, and anybody who comes to LA that's Latino or otherwise, just plug into our events because we make them so accessible. And I think that's the one thing that helps our organization stand out from a lot of other organizations. Whereas like we're constantly and consistently trying to find ways just to make our programs accessible. You've been to our events at the Ricardo.
You guys throw a phenomenal rooftop party. You guys throw some great events. The premiere for The Long Game was fantastic.
Well, that one I had to go above and beyond.
Well, yeah. But Geekscape is before Blue Beetle came out. You had the director of Blue Beetle there. You guys premiered a trailer. I mean, Blue Beetle is the fucking shit. I'm sorry, I'm cursing now, but Geekscape is
your show.
Geekscape is, how much I love Blue Beetle, and
he did a great job.
I loved Blue Beetle. That was the Iron Man for the DCU, and if in Geekscape, as I tell people, like if the Flash and Blue Beetle had just switched release dates so that you get hit with Blue Beetle at the beginning of the summer, to give you like a really awesome movie, rather than one, regardless of what you thought of the Flash, that had a lot of outside baggage going into it. A lot of outside baggage went into the Flash. I feel like if Blue Beetle had come out first and gotten the goodwill and people felt how fresh it was and how much fun it was, I feel like the Flash might have actually benefited from Blue Beetle leading into it and giving people faith in this initiative. That being said, I know actors from Blue Beetle, and some of them tell me that James, we've had Sean Gunn on the show, Peter, James and I, when we were doing indie stuff, we shared the same DP. And I just worked with Peter last year. But I feel like James still likes Blue Beetle. He still likes that iteration of the Blue Beetle. Is what I may have heard that if there's a place for it.
I heard that there was still going to be a place for it, and I think Sholo is amazing.
If you got Peacemaker still coming back, if you're still doing a Peacemaker version of Peacemaker with the Amanda Waller series, and you love Peacemaker, this multiverse, he set himself up to be able to take what works and massage what maybe not have worked the best.
I mean, you got this is the thing. I'm not saying Latino movies. I'm just saying with films that are Latino led or Latino produced. I mean, we're going to show up, but we also need the opportunity. We don't get the opportunity to fail as much as other people. That's the thing that I'm trying to say. That's the point I'm trying to make. So I think with the Blue Beetle, like I even feel that the market, my opinion, I'm not speaking for Nosotros or anybody else, I felt the marketing could have been a little bit more mainstream. I don't feel that it was.
The only promotion I got was at a Nosotros event in the road. I'm kidding. I
love organization that we put on it, but again, it's another great example of it. It was just a cool superhero movie that was Latino led, but it just, I don't feel like it got the love, I think, on the broad scope that it should have gotten. But I'm hearing that they're going to give it another chance. So,
or at least proliferate those characters into other, let's see that character in a version of the Justice Society. Let's see that character. There's a lot of ways. Richard Hawkins is in the chat and he says, what an amazing story. I'm 66, living in North Ireland, and grew up reading Blue Beetle comics. And so you've seen a couple iterations of the Blue Beetle, Richard, and you endorse this one. And it's not like you're not going to get Ted Cord. It's not like you're not going to get some of this other stuff. I'm so excited about the future of. I love comic books. My first job was in a comic book store in Austin, and like I said, I still hang with comics. I still write comics, and it's still a language that I love. But let's get another Blue Beetle movie. I mean, Booster Gold's getting a series, and you got to have Booster Gold team up with Blue Beetle. And Richard, if this is your first Geekscape and you're watching on YouTube, hit like that bell button or subscribe to the podcast on audio on any podcast or podcast app you have, because my God, we talk comics a lot here on the Geekscape. I do love it. He says he 100% loves this. And while you're at it, Richard, while we're giving you the hard sell, you like golf movies? Watch The Long Game.
The Long Game. It's available now from rent and download. So
Joel, we talk about Latinos showing up. I hear it. The industry says it. Those UCLA things come out talking about the success rate of it, and I don't see it, right? You don't see the inclusion. You don't see the percentages equal to in the US, it is disproportionate. The amount of representation in media for Latinos coming out of Hollywood is disproportionate to the much larger number in our society. We got a lot of Latinos here in the States. Why do we not got a lot of Latinos on our screens? So I do hear about showing up. I do hear about that stuff. What's it going to take to bring those numbers a little bit more representative of where we are in our everyday here in America?
That's a loaded.
It's hard. I know.
And I get it. It's a question that, obviously being president of Nosotros now going on 13 years, I've heard many versions of that story. I mean, versions of that question and answers to that question. And, and again, I speak for myself. I don't speak for other organizations. There's a business. It's a business. And I'm probably, it's a business of pointing out the lack of diversity. There's a business in that.
Okay. So you think some of those studies are like the New York Times saying like, oh, Trump's beating Biden.
I feel
let's get those clicks.
There's a business in it. And I think a lot of organizations benefit from those type of reports. I'm not saying that there isn't change that's needed. Of course there is. However, the more that we point it out, the more that we call it out, then we become like, it's almost like it's that thing where you're constantly nagging.
Sure.
And, okay, fine, we're going to put 3 shows out and then we're going to cancel. And then we're going to cancel them. Versus, and I'm
Yeah.
not saying, and I got in trouble for saying this, or they didn't really read.
Okay.
What
I'm timestamping this so I can go back and delete it. Hold on.
No, what I'm saying is, just do the work. Like, when I did my speech in 2019 for the Golden Eagle Awards, what I meant is, I'm not saying that we're not doing the work, but
yes,
just because you're Latino, I'm not going to support your project, and unless that project is elevated, unless it's well produced, it's well acted, it's well put together. Now you can argue we're not giving enough chances. Well, again, it's like, how is it that I and other people like Angel and Julio and all these guys go out and they do these films, and they come from the same places we all come from. So get off this stereotype of the crutch of like, give me a chance because I'm Latino, or it's like, yes, we get it. We're giving you a chance, but once you get it, are you ready for it? And that's what I try to tell people: be ready for it. Ricardo Montalbán would say that all the time. He just wanted us to have the opportunity to compete. If we didn't get the role, that's fine, but give us the opportunity to compete. But I say a lot to my community: be ready, so when you're given that opportunity, you perform and you rise to the top. And the other side of that is, we need more people in the studio level. We need more executives at the studio level to say, yes, this project is not Latino. This project is just damn good, and I'm going to greenlight it, or I'm going to produce it, or I'm going to get involved with it. Not because it's Latino, but because it's good. That's the thing. And if on both sides of it, if you're walking around with a big huarache all the time, ready to bump somebody on the head because it's like, you're not doing enough Latino stuff, how are they going to feel like, oh, here they come again?
Yeah.
Here they come again. Versus, I'm just doing the work, man. My stuff that I strive to do, that man over my shoulder, this side, and this film here, I just strive to just do the best work that I can do. So when I'm given the opportunity, then I can turn around and say, okay, who else can come with me? But if they're not ready, I'm not bringing them with you just because. This isn't the crabs in the bucket thing. You have to be ready to go to the next level. And if you're not, I will tell you you're not. I will guide you on how to get better and then give you an opportunity. But if you're not, it's not my obligation to have to bring you up with me when you're not ready, because all it's going to do is not make us both not look like we're ready.
Right.
And we don't get a second chance.
So checking the boxes is going to save anybody.
No, it doesn't.
It's not going to help anybody. And I think Richard Richard. I love you, man. I love this dude, Richard, in the YouTube. He said, that's not fair, guys. I think when I was talking about my stuff, and then he said, society should not be like that. And then in true Geekscape form, he said, what a great actor he was, the Wrath of Khan.
But was he Latino in that? No, he was Khan, and he was Khan. And there's interviews, guys. If you out there, look up the Television Academy interview with Ricardo Montalbán. You can Google it. It's on YouTube. It's on their website. He talks about that role and how he wanted to make it different. He never talks about how he needed it as a Latino or he wanted to make it Latino. He just talks about it as an actor, saying as an actor, I wanted to bring substance to that role. And I think if we all kind of just approach our work that way, and these diversity reports are great, and I'm sure I'm going to get a bunch of messages from other people. They don't agree with me, but they're good. I look at them, I read them, but I don't carry them with me in my heart.
You can only make a film in it. You can only, you got 24 hours in the day, 12 of them, 16, 18 in our case, awake. You can only work on one story at a time.
You're going to be sleeping, by the way, by the time your daughters are just
I have insomnia like crazy, and I have this thing where I wake up at 2 a.m. and you can usually just watch something a little bit, and then usually by 4 I can start writing comics, and then I help the girls at the Starbucks put their tables out, and sometimes I just sit there and write. Oh, they're the best. Yeah. They're the best. They're like, hey, Jonathan. They see me coming, they put the drink out on the thing, and they're like, yeah, pay us when you're ready. But I do a lot of my work in the morning, which is how I saw Mr. Koenig. And I told him that as a kid, that scene where Montalbán puts the worm in his ear and the Wrath of Khan is all time, man.
All time. They did a scene together that they never. I mean, they filmed this. They were two separate. They never did a scene together. But such a great, iconic performance that he was the bad guy. But the only time you ever saw him was when he was by himself or away from Shatner. But you feared him, right? It was a great, great performance.
I absolutely loved it. Well, Joel, what's next?
I was just going to say, so, been blessed enough that through the Latino Public Broadcasting and the PBS world, we're actually doing the long overdue documentary on Ricardo Montalbán. We are working on that now. I'm working with an awesome director named Hugo Perez. And it's just going to be a telling of his life and his story. He was beyond con. It's beyond Fantasy Island.
Of course.
Who this person was, and also what what change he brought. And he didn't feel that he did, but he did. So it's such an important story for us to tell. I have a show right now with Amazon MGM called Los Regionales, which is a music doc series, and we're in development now. We signed our deal with them. And I have a couple other docuseries that are coming out and some scripted projects that I'm developing right now. And yeah, some pretty cool stuff. So I keep myself busy and I kind of have my hand in a little bit of everything. I love working with new filmmakers and filmmakers that just have a clear vision of what they want to accomplish. And like I tell people, I just want to be a part of that and be a service to that, to whatever I can add to it. So yeah, that's what we do over at Untold.
Nosotros. When's the next party?
I know the Nosotros front. We're doing something on June 27th, but we are also launching our Ya Tu Sabes monologue slam, which is where we open it up nationwide. We ask writers to submit a 2-minute monologue. It gets industry reviewed. We filter it down. Then we filter it down to 25 monologues. Then we release those monologues out to our actors community, and then we have the actors self-tape themselves. Then that gets reviewed, and then we filter it down to 12 actors who then at that point we actually produce them around and on a set. So they're not just doing a monologue, you're seeing them perform as an astronaut floating
existing.
Yeah. So if you go to yatusabes.org or go to our Nosotros website, you'll see last year's performance. And this is elevated production value. And the reason we did that, different from a showcase where you sit in an audience and you see an actor perform a monologue, we wanted to give them an immersion, right? The watchers, but also the actor to be able to say, you don't have to imagine me as an astronaut. Here I am. Look, I'm on a green screen and I'm working with digital screens. You can see that I can play an astronaut, right? And many other examples of that. So that's kind of how we're trying to think out of the box and really kind of bridge the gap there. That people, there's a bunch of rising talent there. It's just a matter of the right producers and the right executives that decide to take a look. You have to decide to take a look. Otherwise,
you're gonna end up on one of those UCLA studios. I'm kidding. Well, Richard, he says, "Oh, guys, you have made my night. Thank you both so much." Well, same to you, Richard. Thanks for hanging out, and Joel, thanks for this conversation, man. I've been wanting to talk to you for a long time, dude. This has been great. There's I see about 50 people watching at the moment. I mean, Geekscape is. You gotta subscribe to the podcast feed too, because there's extra audio stuff that if I go to a convention, I can't bring the video with me. I'm out there with the microphone interviewing people. Like last weekend at Comic-Con Revolution, that was so much fun. And if you're a film person, listening to Sandy Carpenter talk about producing for for Cassavetes, we were nerding out on Cassavetes.
Wow.
And then having Sandy talk about, of course, her husband John Carpenter's films, and Sandy's amazing. I had film students who were so insistent that Halloween was the first Steadicam movie, and I said, "Give me 2 minutes, guys." I text Sandy and I said, "Sandy, these kids over here think this is the first Steadicam. I'm telling you, it's not." And she's like, "You were right, Jonathan. It's an early Varicam, and it wasn't. And we used it, but it wasn't a Steadicam." And I was like, "In your face!"
Yeah.
Sit down and. What's that?
Blood Simple.
Of course, I'm from. They shot it in Austin. It's the Coen brothers' first movie.
That camera that I just remember thinking, "Oh my god!"
Blood Simple's incredible.
Yeah, that goes back to that. Filmmakers just doing it with what they had and not using the money hose and just.
That book, The First Time I Got Paid for It, where they talk about all these different filmmakers talk about the first time they got paid for it, and that's in there. Blood Simple, the Coen brothers talking about it. Spike Lee's in there talking about selling Coke bottles or like collecting Coke bottles. It's a great book, filmmakers, and. I think my friend James Ponsolt is presenting Blood Simple for the American Cinematheque this weekend as a double header with Lone Star, the John Sayles movie.
Oh, wow. This weekend?
It's either this weekend or it's next week. I got to text James. He posted about it on socials. I haven't seen him since Halloween. We gave out candy at his house together. But James and I went to film school together. Awesome. And he's done some awesome stuff like Spectacular Now and the new what's the show with Harrison Ford right now on Apple that's so good with Jason Segel, Shrinking. That show's great.
Oh yeah, I haven't got to watch it. Yeah, Shrinking's
great. All right, Joel.
Yes.
Thank you for being on Geekscape. We're going to promote the Nosotros stuff to the Geekscapists. And again, it's not just Latino stuff. Geekscape is these are good stories. And Joel, dude, thanks for coming on the show, man.
Hey, this was awesome, man. Thank you for letting me to just be able to talk about what I do and see more about what you do. And I wish you all the best of luck as a new dad to be. And feel free to reach out anytime. I have 3 and I will tell you right now. I don't know if you have gray hair, but be prepared for
that. I got the grays. I painted though before the Nosotros event, so I look a little bit younger.
Did you?
Where can we follow you on socials?
On social, Nosotros.org for sure. Nosotros.org on Instagram. Myself personally, you could follow me at Produced by JMG on Instagram, and that's kind of this where I post what I'm doing or where I'm going. I'm at an event or I'm at a premiere or I'm set. I'll be talking a lot about Los Regionales in the next 3 months about our new show with Amazon. So yeah, or just reach out to me through there. I'm always looking for good ideas and good people to connect with.
Geekscape, you got your mission right there. I'm going to tell you to don't hate, create, and you can find us on.
I want my T-shirt.
Yeah, I want my T-shirt. I'll get you a T-shirt. Yeah, I'll bring you a T-shirt. Because there's a baby coming, I am like making sure any comic books, anything that's not nailed down here in the apartment, going to my storage unit.
There you
go. We have Geekscape. I think I have about 80 boxes of comics in that storage unit, and I have to figure out what to do with it. But it's also where we keep the Geekscape shirts and all that. So when I go this week there's 3 boxes hidden behind me right now that have to go to storage, and I'll make sure to pull you a shirt. I'll email you, get your size, and I'll bring you a shirt because I love it. We also have the shirt that I made last year, which just says coffee, comics, and tacos, my 3 favorite things that are my life.
That's a great one.
It's a great shirt. Coffee, comics, and tacos. And Richard Hawkins with his last statement: the most important thing in the world is babies. Yeah. I mean, we don't have more world without more people to live in it. So baby, that's a good point you make there, Richard. I look forward to broadcasting.
Great movie, Children of Men. Also, that was
Children of Men is phenomenal.
Yeah, it was a great example of that.
That's how you do a oneer. That's how you do the oneers, directors.
Yeah.
That's how you do the oneers.
Yeah.
Geekscape, thank you so much. Go out there and make some cool stuff. Peace.